What do I have now? I've got a 14 Toyota Camry. It's a 4-cylinder and has a hard starting issue and a check engine light. The check engine light is on for a P0171 system lean. Now it starts difficult or hard. It's got like a long crank, almost as if it's got a bad fuel pump, like it's losing its prime or something. And I took it for a ride up the road and it kind of surges a little bit, and I'm not quite sure what's going on with this. A common problem with these is the mass air meter. So I took the mass air meter out, I cleaned it, I had no change. Well, in our selection of vehicles outside, we have another Camry. So I stole the mass air meter out of that just out of curiosity, because I wanted to see, I was looking at the scanner and stuff like that, see if it changed anything. And it was a slight improvement on the scanner readings, but it changed nothing in the vehicle. It ran exactly the same. So let me show you here under the hood. Now I already got the engine cover hanging off here. Another failure or another problem is this purge solenoid here. What happens is it gets stuck open and it creates like an internal vacuum leak that can actually create either a rich or a lean mixture depending. So I actually pulled the hose off to see, and I had no vacuum leak to it. And I tried, starting it afterwards. It changed nothing. Everything and all the readings were the same. So that told me, okay, everything's fine there. So let me show you how this thing is starting. Maybe it'll do it right now. It's been off for about 2 minutes. There you see my scanner's hooked up. And on my scanner, if you look close, it shows, I'm not going to climb in the car right at the moment. It shows common repairs for the failure that's there, which is, like I said, a P0171. And the number one is a mass air meter. Like I said, that's not the issue though. So let me go ahead and start this up. So pay attention to see if you can hear it. You hear how it took quite a while to actually start? So I'm thinking that's fuel. That sounds like fuel. Like it's draining back into the tank or something like that, or losing fuel pressure when it should hold some kind of pressure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see the connection is down there underneath that block right there. And I'm going to look through my fuel pressure gauge kit to see if I have stuff so I can splice into that, because this thing does not have a Schrader valve that I can hook into. So I'm going to do that right now because I want to see if I can get a gauge on this thing. So I'd like to see what the actual fuel pressure is. I don't think it's a vacuum leak, or it's definitely not an exhaust leak, because you can actually have an exhaust leak before the number one O2 sensor that could create a lean condition. But I don't think this thing has any vacuum leaks or anything like that. I don't hear anything. It doesn't look like it. Oh, the one other thing that can create is this boot right here from the mass air meter down to the throttle body. If it either came unhooked or if it's cracked or anything like that in the bellow there somewhere, which this is not. I already did check that. Everything appears fine. So I'm going to go ahead and let me grab my fuel pressure gauge and see what I can figure out. So I got my fuel pressure gauge hooked up now. I don't know the spec. I don't know what it's supposed to be. It really doesn't matter at this point, because once it's running, it runs okay, other than a little bit of a surge or whatever to it. But the main concern is the starting issue and the fact that it's running lean, which, usually if it's running lean, it's either a vacuum leak or something like that, but it could be fuel pressure. So let me show you what I did here. So here's the gauge, and what I did down here, it might be difficult to see. Right down there, basically I took the hose off that connects to the factory connector down there, right there, and I put a jumper in place. So this jumper allows me to tee in my fuel pressure gauge right there, and then it connects to the line that goes to the fuel rail. So now, let's go and start this thing and see what happens. Of course, it's going to start rough at first, but I want to see what happens afterwards. Okay, totally expected. And what do we have for fuel pressure? I'm thinking that's low. I would expect to see probably somewhere around 40. Like I said, I don't know what the actual spec is supposed to be at this point in time. But that's pretty low, 23. Most modern cars run at least 35. But I was expecting to see somewhere in the 40 range. Now, when I shut it off, though, that shouldn't drop to anything. Matter of fact, let me take this with me and put this in a spot where I can actually see it when I go to re-crank it. So now let me shut it off. Drops right down. Shouldn't do that. It should hold fuel pressure. So let me turn the key on. Got nothing. Key is in the run position. Alright. You see how long it took to start? And it started once it got up to around, I don't know, 20 psi roughly. And now that's only like 22, 23, 24, something in that range. That's definitely not enough fuel pressure. I'm going to look up the spec, but I'd be willing to bet it's supposed to be somewhere close to 40. That junk right there. I don't know if any of you remember that vehicle from way back in the 80s. Actually 90s, I should say. That's a twin overhead cam V6. It's supposed to be something special when it came out. They are garbage. They were garbage back then. The motor's toasted in that thing. It's only running on 3 cylinders. It's going to get scrapped. We're loading it up with junk, basically. But it's going to get crushed. Alright. So I'm pretty confident this Camry needs a fuel pump. Basically, it's a fuel pump, and then it runs out into up to the rail. So I'm going to look up the spec for the fuel pressure, but I'm pretty confident that's no good. And I'm actually confident that that's the starting issue, because as you saw, the pressure stayed at 0 and then came back up once it started. So actually, you know what? Let me shut it off, and I'm going to come back to this in like 3 minutes when I see how long it takes to start. So it's been off for about 5 minutes now. So let's go back and restart this thing. And let's see. Okay. Key is in the run position right now. You can hear the chime. Yeah. That is definitely the issue. I am confident of that. Like I said, I don't know what the actual fuel pressure is supposed to be while running, but I got a funny feeling this thing's bleeding off in the tank. Because you can hear the pump running inside the car. But I'd be willing to bet it's bleeding off inside the tank, like at the fuel pressure regulator that's built in the tank. So I'm going to call and I'm going to find out who has a pump. I actually did a Camry pump about 2 months ago. Similar Camry, but I think it was a 15 fuel pump. It just died on it. So yeah, even Toyotas have problems. It's not just the American cars. A lot of people harp on the American cars, but Japanese cars have them too. They all have their problems. All the manufacturers make decent cars nowadays. It's what happens. Parts do fail. What are you going to do? So, all right, if you're getting anything out of my videos, hit the like button. If you could, please subscribe. That's it for right now. I'll probably make another video when I go to change the pump. So, all right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.